Hello, and welcome back to the ARK of E podcast. My name is Noah.
My name is Gavin.
And we're the Blanchard brothers, and this week we are talking The Last of Us Season 1, and we're also going to revisit a little segment from a couple weeks ago. It's Playing and Pitching Volume 2.
This is the last of The Last of Us?
For now.
Oh, okay.
We are getting a Season 2, maybe even a Season 3. Gavin has not played Part 2 out of sheer protest, and we will not be spoiling anything that happens in that, but everything that happens in the first game, the Left Behind expansion, and the series on HBO is fair game.
Okay.
So we'll chat about that, and then we'll talk about some other successful IP to our video game to TV adaptations and vice versa, and then we will do the inverse of our previous Playing and Pitching episode, and we're going to talk about some stuff that hasn't been adapted for video games but is rife and ripe. I think both are applicable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Sure. Okay. What'd you think? We're both very big fans of the first game, I think we can at least say.
Yeah, definitely.
What did you think overall? We talked about it a little bit on our previous Playing and Pitching episode, but we didn't go into too much detail. But
so, honestly, when they were like, "Oh, we've cast Pedro Pascal as Joel," and I was like, I mean, okay, and I never really when we talked in the last episode, I got into the aesthetics of who would look like the character,
right?
And you could do enough to make anybody look like. So I was like, okay, well, let me see what he does here, because in my mind, he's Mr. Charisma. He's Mr.
Pedro the actor
in general,
right?
Whether he wants to or not, he's the magnetic one you look at. I knew it was coming, but the fight scene in Game of Thrones, I was just like, no, because it's a beautiful man.
Spoilers for Game of Thrones,
exactly.
Season 4.
Spoilers. Yeah,
the Viper doesn't make it,
right? And then there's a Mandalorian where it's his voice, but it's the same time. It's you add in Narcos, and he's
I've never watched Narcos.
He's really fucking good in it, and it's one of those things the two guys that were actually there, they had their own podcast, and the guy who Boyd Holbrook's character plays openly says Javier's man-slut. He's just always with the ladies when we were down there, but he's getting to know people, blah blah blah, joking about it. And hearing that, and then thinking back to that show, I was like, yeah, no, Pedro Pascal nailed Javier Pena. He's perfect for that role.
Okay.
And it's just one of those things where I'm like, where did he? You don't. It's he's just kind of there. I don't remember him pre Game of Thrones. And
but then of course
you start looking back,
the last,
and you're
several
shit.
months has been the rediscovery of he's been around for quite a while.
The 20-year overnight success, as we But so having that going into it, I watching it every week, seeing what little things they added to or took away from, and I'm thinking about it. I'm like, there's not a lot there. Not a lot to do. What are you doing? Because the game is primarily, we're in these stages, you're playing, you're doing the action. How are you going to get me to get invested in a show that, yes, there are bits where that's there, and there is this looming, fungus threat that's still there, and what are you trying to convey with this story and narrative in the show that you either wanted me to feel playing the game or wanted me to just get, because of the game, the two different dynamics in which you approach this IP. From the game, at the end, like, yes, it's poignant, it's like whatever and all that, and like what he does ultimately to, get her back is, in my mind, I'm just like, no, that's my character, that's my little girl, I got to get her back, whatever. But in thinking about the finale, and they're like realizing that like he methodically and like just no nonsense, matter of fact, effectively, rids the world of any possibility that you could cure this. And I'm like, I don't really even care, because what's worth saving? Like, we've all been, but I didn't get that from the game. And maybe I should have. Maybe I should have been paying more attention. Maybe I should have picked up more notes. I don't know. But in seeing that now, I'm like, oh yeah. Because there's plenty of things that like in the game that were still just like gut punches. And I feel like that's what this is. It's like they thematically were able to show me all these gut punches that I could have a million times over in the game experience. But they were, to me, they actively and like successfully showed that like, this isn't your, in your face, like The Walking Dead, like, oh, it's actually the humans that we got to worry about, the walkers or what. Like, it doesn't hit you over the head like that show tried to do in 8-9 seasons. Like, you guys get it yet? It's actually the humans that are the Walking Dead. It's like it masterfully says, here's a guy who the day that the world ended, his world ended, but he didn't die, and he's had to do things to survive. For what? We find out later, he thought about checking out, couldn't do it, for whatever reason. And then here's this other person that's given him a purpose or a focus. And whether you want to call it selfishly or not, he chooses to do what he has to do to not lose her again, because of the fact of how he lost his daughter, which we see in the opening. And I'm fine with it. I can't blame him whatsoever in the narrative of the show or the game. And, it's one of those where I just, especially the last this last episode, the little girl that plays Ellie, Bella Ramsey, yes. She was just
the young woman, the 19-year-old.
Sorry, yes, but she's teeny. She's little.
I know. I'm just saying it's crazy to think about, because
you forget she was in Game of Thrones too.
Well, right, and I don't know. There's already people were giving her shit when she was cast, and now there's the whole debate of like, but can she really do part 2? Can she really do part 2? And I'm like, she's age appropriate, and if anything, they've aged her down for her look in this.
Right.
So. Yeah, 100%.
A change of hairstyle, and she looks like her from the second one.
If you watched episode 8 of the show and thought, and you weren't fully convinced that she can do everything that is required of this character, emotionally, physically, etc., I don't know what else would convince you.
Well, like I said, like with 9, it was like gut punching and like just like so. I don't want to say cringe, but like just looking at the performance and seeing her like obviously not okay, and him like just trying to like, trying anything he can to try and get her to get out of it, and like just talk to him, and just it's so like it's obvious where he's at, how he's feeling.
I know you're saying, like you said, you didn't feel like you got all of this from the game or whatever, but like again, this is all very present in that section where it's like it's post all of the stuff with David,
right?
A little bit of time has passed, but clearly she's not herself. Like she is changed, and that's what's so fucked up and tragic about the whole love story of all of this, is they ultimately pass each other. It's like as he is gradually, she's softening him, he's coming back to life and becoming more normal or whatever. At the same time, she's going through stuff and like having to save him, fend off, and everything she goes through to do that ultimately puts her in this haunted state that he was the headspace he's been in for much of the story that he was coming out of. And it's like they just kind of move right past each other. And with where this ends, that they can, they can't go back to the road. Like, they can't go back to how it was before. And that's the ultimate tragedy of everything that's so upsetting, and the note that it's left on just this, like, empty pit of your stomach feeling is just like, oh my God, all you wanted was, like, for him to get a daughter and her to get a dad. And then it just all falls apart in a second because of how much he loves her, which is what's so fucked up about it.
Right.
And so brilliant. And
like the scene where he's like, you know what I think I'm in the mood for? I think I'm in the mood for puns. And it's like, bro, you are so...
He's trying so hard.
You're grasping at everything. God bless you, and then where that leads to. And then, but again, it's like, I thought it was great with the whole, it wasn't unfounded because you've had hints along the way that, like, this dude is a motherfucker. Like, he may not seem like it, but he's a motherfucker.
They reaffirmed it in the previous episode. That interrogation scene, dude, if you can even call it that.
Yeah.
I've realized, I think it's because, I got some tendonitis, I got issues with knee trauma on screen.
Mm-hmm.
That fucked me up. That was maybe one of the most, like, brutal things I've seen in anything in a little while. Speaking of which, I was rewatching Shallow Grave, and Ewan McGregor getting crowbarred to, like, the knee and the shin. Brutal.
Speaking of Ewan McGregor, I just watched T2 Trainspotting on Hulu.
I actually am saving it for. They're doing Danny Boyle right now on.
Did you see when it came out though?
No, I haven't seen it at all. I'm saving it for when they get to
it.
Sunshine is this weekend, so I'm going to be rewatching Sunshine.
Okay.
Which I think is on HBO Max.
I think it's 2007 too.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sure is.
Just in case you were thinking about something, But yeah, no, that, and then it's all right. I believe your friend. That's fine. And that was the thing is, like, I don't remember the last playthrough of, like, going through and, like, getting to her, but just I don't fucking have time for this. And, like, boom, 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 moving through everything. And just like, I'm not going to let you pop, done. All right. Y'all get against the wall. And, it's like, he's a motherfucker. He's not sadistic because he could have murdered all those nurses, but he didn't. But then the way they cut around the whole, now you're just come after us. Like, I just like fucking,
straight out of the game.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
And it ended the way you said it should. Like, it ended note perfect as to how you thought it should end the series.
No, it was like that again. That ending of the game that's the thing that immediately put it in the pantheon, where it was just like, I cannot believe the level of storytelling that video games are capable of. And that's beyond just a writing level and a performance level. It's technology. It literally is. In that moment, you need the facial capture of that performance, the dialogue, everything. But you need the ability, through the graphics and everything, to convey unspoken emotion. And it's just like, that was not always a thing you could do in video games and have it done convincingly. But that is when I fully was like, the final shot of this game is me looking at Ellie's face and being able to read the nuance in the way that she delivers that line and the look that she does not believe him
at all.
She doesn't buy it. She's hurt by it. There's so much in that okay. And it stuck with me ever since I saw it. I waited a long time. I replayed it when they remastered it on PS4. I do want to play it again now on PS5 whenever I can finally get my hands on one. But I did just restart my playthrough of Part 2 immediately to kind of stay in the vibe and continue the story. That's my first time revisiting that since it came out 3 years ago. And just played through basically the first chunk today. And it was just as upsetting as I remember it being, without spoiling anything that happens in that game. But yeah, they hit, and of course, I feel like in some ways I'm the harshest critic because I'm just like, just live up to and give me that feeling that I got from the game, and don't fuck it up. I was terrified that, like, are they going to tack on some, like, extra scene on here? Is there going to be something afterwards? And I was so terrified. And then when it cut to credits, I was so happy.
Right.
That it totally nailed that final moment. Yeah, I don't know how well you remember that section of the game, but you, and I haven't replayed it in quite a while either, but I do just remember that feeling of, like, oh, like, in the moment, feeling like, yeah, give me an assault rifle. Let me know this can't happen. I got to stop this. And then maybe in the midst of it, when people are begging for their lives and shit, kind of, it really puts you through something. I've really only experienced one other sequence like that in a video game that I can think of, which is Phantom Pain.
Yeah.
I think the sequence I'm talking about. It's very late in the game, and it's like after you've built up your entire base of people, people whose names and positions and all of that, the game makes you kill all of them. Like,
right.
Systematically go through and murder all of them because they're like infected with something. What's the deal?
Isn't it the voice infection thing with the
yes
with the quiet?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, you have to.
Kudos for me remembering that for a game I've never played.
Huh?
Kudos for me knowing that from a game I've never played.
Did I just spoil the end? Sorry.
I know what it is. I know the lore, dude. But you
never played through.
No, I mean I want to, and I never played 4 or 5. I played.
It's incredible. It's just obviously you're incentivized to, like, have a great team and, like, keep building up your base. It's an aspect of the game. It's not something that's, like, thrust upon you, but you do, like, if you put enough time into it, you have a certain amount of a relationship to it, and then, like, you have to murder your whole fucking squad.
Yeah.
It's the only other time I've experienced something like that where it's like you have to do it. There's no other way to progress in this. There's no workaround. There's no cheat code to get past it.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring up Kojima because I feel like he's the first guy to really, really introduce, like, narrative stakes into what were otherwise like, oh, point at the thing and shoot it, progress to the next level. Like,
I mean, when you make me, if I don't hit the O button fast enough, I can't save somebody. And if I hit the O button fast enough and I beat this torture machine, then I get a whole other different ending. Like, it's the first time I remember that ever happening. I'm sure, and of course, I'm sure there's plenty of other games where it was like, well, you can choose what you're going to do, RPG, all that. But that's the first time in just like a mainstream action, like that,
So yeah, it got you there.
Mm-hmm.
You say, I guess it sounds like more so than the game in terms of some of the thematics. I do think the addition of his suicide attempt, and specifically the line of, like, I guess time heals all wounds. He's like, it's not time that did it.
Yeah.
Which is not in the game, but which is maybe, I don't know. It's like top 5 most, like, moments in the show for sure.
Speaking of that, I had a random I don't think I told you this. I don't know if I could tell you this on mic. So the other day before I came back to, like, work with you and Dad to get the pool stuff down, I ran to Walmart because I was like, I'm not going to fucking ruin a pair of regular jeans and a shirt. I'll just get, like, cheap Walmart stuff.
Okay.
So I'm looking in the clearance section, and I turn, like, I see a guy kind of standing with his back to me. He turns around to look at the same clearance section I'm looking at. He has a fucking long hair and a giant beard that is braided all the way down to, like, his belly button. And I looked at him. He's an older dude. And I was like, man, I'm trying to get like you, beard and all that. And he quietly just goes, give it time, and walked away. And I didn't see him again. And I was like, holy shit, was this guy real? Did this happen? Like, I'm looking, like, I didn't see him again. I figured, like, I walked around. I went back to the place I saw him. He wasn't there. I didn't see him checking out. I was like, was that just like a guardian angel kind of dude? Did he keep me from
Wizard of Walmart?
Yeah. What did he? Yeah. Did he keep me from leaving early so I wouldn't get into, like, an accident or something? Like, what happened here? But yeah, that was the Give it time. Like, dope as shit. I was like, holy shit,
like,
man.
he'll come back to you when you get to that length.
Right.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Okay.
You know? So, yeah.
All right.
But no, and I have to say that it's solely for the medium. Because, like, I do what I do. I play that sequence in the game. I know we're getting to the end there. I'm just like, it's a whole different. I took a whole class at USC on play and what it means. We did video games. We had a lab where everybody brought a stuffed animal, and then like you had to pick a different stuffed animal and like a bunch of shit, cut it up and make your own animal, like stuffed animal out of it. We did like a giant game of not hide and go seek, but you had to go find items and objects and stuff. So like there was a whole thing on what play is, what it means to do through different mediums, board games, video games, just, you know, in general, what it means. It's more philosophy than like media arts, I guess. But I think it's just in the narrative and like playing it through as a video game, it hits me differently because I'm invested in the story, but I'm active. I'm playing it. I'm doing it. I am getting that.
I guess that's what was so fascinating about the ending when I played it to me was that's ultimately when it's like, well, yeah, you've been playing a story this whole time.
Right.
And it's like, yes, a lot of it is communicated to you.
Right.
In cutscenes, but there's a lot of organic, like environmental storytelling, stuff you can read, etc., and just the little interactions between the characters that some of which you can choose to have or not have when you're just kind of walking around.
And that's what I appreciate about like the Henry and Sam stuff and them going underground and all this other stuff that like I didn't mind the stuff they were shoehorning in, but I would have liked a little bit more of like, because you don't really know why Henry and Sam are on the run. Like they don't explain to you anything. They're just there. And you agree to go with them, right?
You're talking about in the game?
In the game.
Yeah, no, it's way more vague. It's just, it's basically explained as like he was going to be part of the Hunters, I think, came around, which is Kathleen's group in the show, but she wasn't a character, of course. But the idea is they don't allow kids, and it's as simple as that. And so he was basically like, you know, give up my brother and go with them or not, and he chose not to. And so they're
but they weren't like coming after him.
They're around, but they're not like, no, the main threat in that segment, if I remember correctly, is just infected.
Right.
That's not like a huge
So like again,
I don't know. Again, I haven't played one
in order
years.
to give me a little bit more of like a maybe what you couldn't in the game as far as like how bad things had gotten, just like inside of areas that were supposedly safe. I appreciate that whole like, you know, you informed on your neighbors, then you know the convicts rule the prison now, and it's, you know, whatever,
right.
And we may have some kind of semblance of, you know, like order, but we really don't, and you know, all this other stuff. I can appreciate you giving me that because you do need to fill it, because if I'm just looking at this as like they leave Boston, they get here, they meet the brother, you go to Seattle. Okay, what are we doing? Like, it doesn't have a lot going on to me for a narrative for a show. I was wondering, what are you going to do? So the fact that the third episode, we're done with these two characters we've seen, or is it the second episode? I can't remember. Whatever.
The third episode is Bill and Frank, but I think what you misremember, and a lot of people seem to have, is like it's not like it's this whole isolated Bill and Frank thing. It is bookended by Joel and Ellie.
Yeah.
Like intentionally so, but it's like, no, there's like 15 to 20 minutes on either side of that segment, because it's an hour and 20-minute episode of them. But yeah, it just feels very
no, and that's what I'm
isolated.
saying. But the idea is that the bulk of your episode, your third episode of this new show that you're doing, that you're only doing 9 of,
it was
not
a
10,
bold choice.
fucking move, and I love it. I thought it was great. I liked my question and all this stuff is like, when I watch the after stuff, I'm looking at Neil and I'm like, is this what you really wanted to do? Are you getting to do what you really wanted? Like, you saw how that played out and you thought, you know what? I really like it if I could have done this, but I can't do that in a video game, because why am I going to take time away from what my two people are doing and have this story of these two guys living things out? Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll pepper in their life how they would have met these people, because we're never told that. As far as I know, you don't see that.
No,
there's no part
it's
where
all
you're
just,
it's
oh,
all,
I know this guy.
Yeah, exactly. So like I can appreciate that in a means to like, pad the runtime and give you maybe another episode. The thing I really enjoy that I've heard from people are like hit or miss is I appreciated like the opening segment of like, well, we'll have to worry if this fungus ever gets able to be in a hot temperature because it's pretty fucked up.
I think we talked briefly about it at the time, but that opening segment just set the tone of, I was like, they're gonna do this right. This is not gonna be I already was primed for that just based on all the promotional material.
And even the second episode where it's like burn the town. What?
Yeah.
Burn it. Like that's the only way you're gonna get this thing out. And those two right there completely inform everything I see in the future, and I get it. Burn the town, that explains everything about why the world is how it is right now. Right. Buildings are...
And, I mean, just to touch on it, because we very much focused on the back half of the finale, but the opening, which of course is not in the game, but where they had Ashley Johnson, the Ellie, giving birth to Ellie in the show, was just... That was a chef's kiss. Now, back in episode 8, when Troy Baker showed up, I was secretly hoping for, like, when Joel is struggling back to life and, like, fending off dudes, I was hoping for, like, oh, tell me you're going to have Joel and Joel have, like, an epic fucking showdown between each other. Where it's, like, people watching the show are just like, whatever, but, game fans are like, it's Joel fighting Joel, like, holy shit.
Oh, well, no, I mean,
I thought they were going to go that route. So then when that did not happen, and things played out with him getting cleaved by Ellie, because I was like, oh yeah, James is like the right hand. And I remembered that literally that same sequence in the game, and I was like, oh, that's a nice touch that she gets to kill him.
Yeah. Well, and I also was thinking like, well, what if like he's having second thoughts about all this, and he's like, he's gonna do the right thing, and like, I gotta get this little girl out of here. And he's in the middle of doing that, and it's like, for a brief, maybe like 5 minutes or whatever, they're together going through here. Yeah. And then either, David takes him out, or Joel mistakenly like comes back with the old man strength and is like, you, and like just, same way he unceremoniously just like fucking killed those two guys with the map. He kills James without a second thought. And that's another thing he has to like, I don't know, lie to Ellie about, or just like, she's like, what happened to him? He's like, I killed him. He's like, well, he was helping me. Well, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. We have to go, but I think that just compounds too much of like the stuff. But yeah, I appreciated them putting both of those in there because, I know there's a lot of people who were fans that were like, oh my God, this is great. And I know there are people who like Dad who were like, huh? Oh, okay. I don't really know what that means, but I'm like, this is the guy that did the voice acting and the motion cap and all that for this character in the game. Right. Oh, okay, cool. Like he just, like, but again, the last time I talked to him, he didn't know that there was like behind the scenes for every episode. He thought like after 4, they quit doing them. And I was like, no, but I think it's for some reason.
I'll really blow his mind and explain to him that there's a whole like hour-long podcast with all of those same people, like that he can go listen to.
Yeah.
And also like 20 or 30 other podcasts that chose to cover it.
Yeah.
That's why we didn't do it episode by episode, because it was going to be a huge thing. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know that they could have done a better job just overall with an adaptation of this. I think it was like, it's kind of the new standard, the new pinnacle of like what you can do with a video game adaptation in this medium.
I'm super ready for that Super Mario Kart. What they're going to do.
What?
The Super Mario Kart gritty reboot they're doing. You didn't see that?
Oh, I did. Yes, I did see that. I thought you were referring to the fact that the new Super Mario Brothers trailer featured the fact that it's going to be every Mario thing. I'm so excited. I didn't think I would be. I'm still weird about the Chris Pratt voicing him thing, but it looks cool, man. It looks really fun.
It looks like it'll be a Sonic the Hedgehog and have no business being as good as it is.
Yeah, hopefully. Not that we need to transition off of it already, but I just wanted to say, the only thing that ultimately held it back from like this perfect like 10 out of 10 for me was weirdly having played the game and being such a huge fan of the game, which is like, it's not even that like, oh, I didn't feel like the show lived up to it. I think it was as good as it possibly could have been. But ultimately, for me, I'm like, I don't know, like, you're only able to remind me of those emotions and maybe get me to them in a different way. And I'm approaching this still as like it's its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, a lot of the huge beats I've already gone through.
Yeah.
Once, twice, sometimes 3 times. And it's just like, yeah, at the end of the day,
well, I think the question,
a certain part of this narrative was, a certain part of me would have been maybe excited by like, oh, what if they did kind of like really, really twist it? And of course, game fans would be furious. Like, I'd be super upset. But I also
even
love
more upset than what happens in 2, you think?
Dude, I can't wait to see how the show community reacts to that without spoiling anything. But sorry, God.
No, I was just going to say, do you think if you could Eternal Sunshine, the game, out of your head and just watch this, would it make you want to go play the game?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, that's my thing. I'm just curious.
Yeah, yeah.
Like if before the game,
presumably, yeah.
If before the show dropped,
remove it from my brain, but sure. But you're also assuming a world where it's like I'm not a video game person.
No. Just hear me out. Before the show drops, you get in a freak bicycle accident.
Okay.
And you can't remember any video game you've ever played in your life.
Okay.
And so every video game is going to be brand new when you play them. In fact, you don't know what the video game console is when you get home from the hospital.
Okay.
And in recovery, you've watched all of The Last of Us.
Okay.
Would you then, finding out, like, not reading about, listening to any behind the scenes stuff where they mention a game, but you just decide to watch it for the last one, like, oh wait, there's an after show, and they're like, oh, in the game, and you're like, oh, there's a game to this?
Okay.
Would you then be like, I think I want to play it?
Sure.
Okay, that's what I'm getting at.
In this weird fucked up scenario, yeah, sure.
The amount of times you've hit your head on something as a child, I'm amazed you're still here.
Mostly thanks to you.
Yeah. Like, one. The other time when you fell down the stairs is because you were wearing somebody's shoes. Oh, dude, I don't mean to spoil this for you.
Yes.
But Mom found, like, yearbook stuff from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, your photo is like you in that yearbook, but you're like sitting on the wicker chair with your suit on and your Mrs. Doubtfire glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And it is like badass. Mom was like, he had to wear them. I was like, those are not his glasses he had to wear. Those are like the Mrs. Doubtfire dress up glasses that he's wearing in this photo. And she also found a thing where I was on the internet. I was rollerblading in Japan. I think I put that on my. Yeah, that's right. You did see that. But yeah, you definitely got to check your box out next time you like your box of stuff in Japan in the attic and whatnot. It's pretty dope.
I will do that.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those where I guess because I was so invested again as like the player.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I'm watching cutscenes. Okay, yes, and I'm getting this and I'm feeling this, but in my head I'm like, I want to get back to the thing I was doing, salvaging for stuff, making stuff, doing whatever to get me to where I need to go. So to have the show hit the same notes that the game does and have me really being able to, like, I don't want to say like I saw it for the first time, like I saw the game for the first time here, having that playing experience and then watching it play out. But it's definitely something to where, like, at some point I probably will go back and play the original one just to go through those things again and, like, just to know in my mind, okay, I played this once, I watched the show, I'm going to play it again just to appreciate how how much of the mark it hit. You know what I mean? Because we've talked about last time about things that we want, games we want to see become this IP. There's been plenty of them, not many vary with a TV show, but there's been plenty of movies where they just completely fall flat because they just miss everything. And I don't know if that's the people who own the right to it sell it to Universal or Warner Brothers, and they're just like, it's our IP, pay us for it, do what you want. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anybody maybe has had the chance to say, all right, well, it's our IP, but if you're going to do this, I need to be on board and making decisions, because it's like, quote unquote, my baby, and I'm going to protect it as best I can.
And I think this has set a precedent where you'll see more and more of that. Hopefully. And the acknowledgement of, like, Neil Druckmann is a director. Like,
yeah.
Even though he's like, oh, I had to learn a lot for TV and everything, it's like, yeah, but you do have a leg up. You're doing a version of it. You're working with actors on a one-to-one basis. You're writing this shit. Like, you're just, it's a different format. To that end, though, for me, one of the biggest strengths, and I think for some non-game players, I've only heard this from a few people, not all of my friend group or whatever, but I've heard the comment that some things felt a little rushed. And it's hard for me to separate that because, again, I bring all of the emotional baggage of those characters from the game. I just do. It's hard to divorce that from, like, just more watching them execute on things that I already know are happening and coming. But I think that's ultimately was for the first season, and hopefully will continue to be for future seasons, if there is more than one more. Sticking to the structure of the game and not, like, again, where they chose to stretch, I thought was very strategic.
Right.
And I loved that, like, it did have this engine to it. It never felt like we lost momentum and, oh, they padded this out just for the hell of it. Everything, like, episode to episode, I thought was very well paced for how the structure of that game and the story should have played out to me. Like, I know you might get to the end and feel like, oh, why was the finale like the shortest episode of the whole season? And it's like, well, because it didn't need to be any longer, because that was it. Right. Because that was the end of the story. Like, again, I would have been pissed if they, like, tacked on some extra 5-minute scene that, like, alluded to where things might go into season 2, instead of just, like, no, just stick the landing, because it's one of the best stuck landings ever in any story, like in any medium. Well, so don't fuck with it. That is, again, that's been the biggest hurdle for most video game to movie or TV adaptations, is you immediately want to take the things that work about it and just like, oh, but that'll never work in TV. You can't do that in a movie.
Right.
You can't do that in a TV show. You can't end a season on an emotional lie, on a cliffhanger of character emotion, not some big, like, grandiose display. It's like, no, you 100% can do that. Just do that.
Oh, I mean, if you looked at, like, two of the other bigger shows this year already, they're doing it. Like, they ended like, I didn't know this. They ended 1923 on that note. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a big emotional, like, the two of them yelling at each other because the husband's getting dragged off of the ship they're on because he's got to be put to port. It's this whole thing, but she's yelling at him like, "I'll meet you in Bozeman, Montana. Meet me there." Like, he can no longer be on the boat that she's on. That sort of shit. And that's it. That's the end of it. And I'm like, looking for episode 9, and like, oh, well, it's gonna be 2 seasons. What? 2 8-part seasons split half to half. Like, you want to know somebody who's fucking printing their own goddamn money? Fucking Taylor Sheridan. Like, that dude,
man lives in his own world.
Dude, it's just horses, cowboys, and the occasional drama, and that's it. Like, he just like, when I realized who he was from Sons of Anarchy, I was like, oh, that's why he left and was killed off in the second season. He had all this other shit to go, write out, plan, and start these couple of movies, this fucking giant TV show, and then, like, this other fucking thing. And, like, dude, I mean,
and now he's in, like, Ryan Murphy, Shonda territory.
Yeah.
In terms of just, like, I got my fingers in a
dance,
lot of
puppets dance.
Yeah.
Because guess what? That fucking show was not available on Paramount or anything. Plus, you had to pay somebody else completely a different, like, thing to stream Yellowstone as it was coming out.
All right, so
ridiculous.
Yellowstone, like, the video game.
I mean, yeah.
Rockstar.
Yeah, you could totally do it.
Okay.
If we're switching it, though. Well, no, we're switching it.
We
So
don't
yeah,
have
yeah.
to.
It still could
Any
work.
final thoughts on The Last of Us? Your last thoughts on The Last of Us Season 1? I'm very excited for Season 2. I definitely want them to take their time with it. I think we'll see a little bit of a natural delay. Anyways, I don't expect it until I would say probably like 2025 at the earliest.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
obviously they'll want it back sooner. It's been a huge hit.
Mm-hmm.
Succession's going away. Barry's going away.
Oh, dude, Barry.
Yeah, they're losing some big guns this year. So
Are they bringing back House of?
House of the Dragon will be
Okay,
back for
yeah.
sure.
Oh wow.
Euphoria is still around, of course.
I mean,
They got your boy, the Idol show. Who knows what the hell is going to happen?
or when
with
that's
that.
happening? Yeah,
They keep delaying it.
Yeah.
A lot of behind the scenes drama, all sorts of
Mhm.
stuff, man. It's gonna. I can't wait to see what.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what came out of that.
All I'm saying is, you're getting rid of all this shit. You could have at least given me one more season of Raised by Wolves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That'd have been great. So let's make that a game.
I mean, that. To be fair, that's HBO Max, baby. I mean, that's not HBO proper.
Right.
We're talking HBO proper.
Right. But I mean,
I'm just talking about in terms of their big guns. They're losing Succession.
yeah.
They're losing Barry.
I'm saying HBO could have said, like,
But
we'd
the
like to have the third season of Raised by Wolves on our own like, you don't even have to put it on. We won't even put it on HBO Max if you don't want it HBO Max. Then it's like infighting. It's like, what are you doing?
I mean, I feel like they cashed that check on giving Westworld a fourth season, which nobody watched. Nobody.
Yeah.
Nobody saw it.
That, like, again, I said it on the last cast we talked about. If I hit the $300 billion, whatever $1 billion lottery it is, I would have a nonprofit that's set up solely to fund your favorite television show that gets canceled mid-season / without a conclusion. And I would enter into negotiations with said show and say, look, I'll give you one last season. You got to wrap everything up nicely. Here's X amount of money. If you run out, come back. I'll give you some more. Go. And I would just be doing that. And instead of DreamWorks, I call it Dream Worker. Because, like, I'm working people's dreams. They wish they had this last season of television. And I give it to them. Because that's entertainment. You know what I mean? That's what I would do with my money. Don't know if I'm ever going to win. You got to play to win. But, 2 times I've got real close. So, it's like 4 numbers off. It's real close. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Are we playing and pitching? We want to do a couple of these before we wrap things
We
up.
can do that. I said last time, and I stand by it, Waterworld.
Okay.
Yeah.
Waterworld the game.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, water's pretty, they gotten pretty good at rendering it.
Yeah.
Are we talking like ship to ship combat that then transitions into human on human combat?
Essentially, yeah.
Do we need to explain to people what Waterworld is, Gavin?
The polar ice caps have melted. The ocean levels have risen 13 feet.
I wish I could do the score. But I can't.
All of mankind.
There's a lot of woodwinds, right?
The survivors of this event have been forced to live on the water. Welcome to Waterworld.
Some tribal drums.
Yeah. The fact that fucking Costner took a fucking helicopter back to the mainland every day, and the crew and the rest of the cast had to stay on that fucking atoll.
Okay.
It should make me want to hate that movie, but I love that movie, dude.
Here's the thing.
We love that movie.
I know we've watched it a bunch, and it seems just like an ever-present part of childhood. I haven't seen it in years. I just happened to just take a cursory glance at it on IMDb a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm.
That movie's like 3 hours long.
Yeah, bro.
What happens in it? Because I only remember I remember him slapping the kid. Funniest fucking thing ever.
Yeah.
In a movie, probably. I remember 1 or 2 battles with the smokers, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And then they find dry land, right? 3 hours of that, though?
introduction to the Mariner. He makes it to the atoll.
Oh, they take the kid eventually, don't they?
He makes it to the atoll. Right. Okay. As they're about to execute him at the atoll for being a mariner, gets attacked by Dennis Hopper. He makes his great escape. Gene Triplehorn. And Enola. I don't remember the actress.
If I'm not mistaken, there was a Waterworld game, right?
I'm not, as far as I mean, on The Simpsons, yeah, that one episode of The Simpsons, but no, I don't know.
There's not a Waterworld NES game.
As far as I know, there isn't.
Super Nintendo, excuse me.
Possibly. I could be.
Okay.
I have no idea.
But you want open world,
I want like an ships. Assassin's Creed-esque level of like ship battles. And you've got to like you can have different factions. You can like expand the universe, like have yes, the deacons and like the smokers, they're bad dudes, but like there could be worse dudes than them. You know what I mean? And like you have your friendly people on the atoll, but then you might have this other community of like they know this and that, like this one place that like just is able to make fuel. Because you ask yourself, it's Waterworld. How the fuck do they have all that fuel for all those jet skis, all those boats? How do they have all those cigarettes for Dennis Hopper, all that ammunition? Where'd they get it from? There's got to be somebody that's manufacturing it the same way that they are in like Mad Max, you know? So yeah, Waterworld. That would be a fun. I mean,
there is a game called Waterworld for the Virtual Boy.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's, the Waterworld we're thinking of. It looks like it.
I mean,
I don't know, man. But it's definitely, I'm not saying if it's been done before, it's off the table.
Well, no, and I was trying to think of things that like didn't happen.
Okay. I like it. You want to go back and forth?
Sure.
I mean, I didn't make a list. These are kind of off the top of the dome, but I had this thought earlier today. What about like an asynchronous multiplayer game that's an adaptation of Severance?
Huh.
Where you play as an innie or an outie, but somebody else, somewhere, it's online, is your other.
Right.
Your innie or your outie.
Mm-hmm.
You two can't see what the other one are doing.
Uh-huh.
But there's some element of leaving things for each other to help you further investigate the world of The Office, vice versa.
And what's going on, what the company really does outside of The Office?
Yeah.
Yeah. That could be interesting.
And stuff that you're finding in The Office maybe inform. But the idea of like that would truly do the separation. You don't know what the other person's doing, but it's affecting your gameplay.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And theoretically, each person could be playing an innie and outie. Okay? Where it's like you're playing the two sides of the gameplay, but the other person on the other side of yours is somebody completely different. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're not playing both sides of it.
Right, yeah, no. Because like you could make the mechanics of like if I'm on the outside and like I drink too much. If you're playing
during the daytime,
yeah,
you're playing this side. If you're playing during the nighttime, you're playing this side.
Right, but like I go out to drink one night too much after work, and then like the next morning, the other player's just like, why is my screen blurry? Why is he taking forever? Why is my health low? And like it won't ever get to full no matter what I do to make. Yeah, that would totally be neat.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if you center it specifically around the show, but I just thought that idea of the innie and outie thing, like that, some kind of multiplayer where you're not privy to what the other side's doing.
Right.
But it is, and it wouldn't be reliant on you playing at a particular time. That's the other thing I don't know how you work around. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because it would essentially have to be randomized, but you'd have to be theoretically paired up with just one other player to have like this consistent growing experience. I don't know how all the bells and whistles work. That's for the suits.
I'm not an X's and O's kind of guy, Monix.
In Silicon Valley to figure out.
If they can even do that anymore. I mean, that fucking bank went up, so who knows what's happening with that.
So, you got another one for me?
I was kind of trying to think of something that, like, relevant, that, like, just happened, that people be like, yeah, we could totally do that as a game.
I saw this movie, that maybe would have been a lot better if it had just been a Dino Crisis movie.
What's it called?
It's called 65.
Oh, you watched it.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently nobody else did.
I was the one.
Yeah. They said it got buried at the thing. I was like, holy shit.
I had a discount on Fandango after spending good money on Scream 6.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen it yet?
No, I need to. That was going to be what I was thinking. I know they already have one, and it'd be really easy just to do it with, like, the Scream, like, look of it all. But, like, totally one of those, like, the Jason, you have to hunt Jason kind of things, like an online multiplayer with that. But do that as Scream or Halloween or whatever. Freddy.
Okay. Well, they do have skins for that for, what is it, Dead by Daylight?
Yeah.
They've done a Scream package. They've done Halloween.
Yeah.
They don't all at this point. But no, I think you go... I had this one as a thought too, so we can collab on it. I was thinking, no, you give it to like Supermassive. You give them the license for it. They did Until Dawn and The Quarry. But I'm saying you give them the full license of the Scream.
You forgot about Man of Medan, or is that not them?
I don't know. I think those are like adjacent or like a side studio.
Yeah, that's right.
The mainline Supermassive games are just Until Dawn and The Quarry. But those are very much the same vibe, the Man of Medan series.
And then the other one, the one with the house and the...
I forget what it's called.
Yeah.
But, yes. To me, you take that, though. You give them the license of Scream, so they have the iconography of it. And you could have a realm in that, you know, in that line where, I don't know, maybe it's a new story, but maybe if you have the license to everything, you have a license to the movies, and everybody's like visual, digital rights or amalgamations or approximations thereof.
Mm-hmm.
What if you could go back through, you know, the previous movies or something, but they're different, or they're remixed, or like it's a different killer. That could be interesting.
Or like they're always just same two killers, but you could effectively get everyone out without being...
You could try to figure out how to save everybody.
Right.
Or, well, that I don't know how that would work exactly, but if you were doing a new one, whatever continuity, it doesn't necessarily have to... You could start a new continuity in the games, but you have the structure of, we got a bunch of different characters. You're playing, we're shifting perspectives the way they've done in The Quarry and Until Dawn, and you're kind of trying to find clues or whatever, but you build in moments more like just a choice thing, the way they already have. But I'm thinking more LA Noire, where there's an investigative element to, like, you're trying to read people, and maybe you get...
Damn, dude, that would have been a good one to make
you get like false clues and stuff. Like, oh, yeah. But you get a lot of... when we did that, when we said we were trying to stay away from stuff that was already too cinematic, and LA Noire was one of those where it's like, well, it's every fucking noir movie ever made, just done in a cool video game, basically. Yeah. It's all the tropes in one. So what's the point of
what you're talking
reverse
about,
engineering it?
I get what you could do with the Scream thing, but if we're going to do that, we could flip it and we could do the same thing for, like, Perry Mason.
Oh yeah, I think those games structurally and like just the gameplay style they've introduced, where it's like basically just an interactive movie where you have like very minimal control,
and they're fun as fuck. I played every one of them.
I think there's a way to apply that to like pretty much any fun detective sort of story, which I think is always effective. But I think like,
did you ever play the Telltale Batmans?
Yeah.
So like that, I feel like you can shoot
and
the same
Telltale,
thing.
Of course, those don't exist anymore. But something of that ilk you could definitely bring back. And anything that's kind of narrative or choice-based, I also always kind of think of Quantic Dream, the people who did, was it Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, Detroit Become Human.
Oh, what's his face? The guy, the director of all of them, it's the same dude. He's like
I can't think of his name.
I know who you're talking about, but yeah.
But yeah, again, those are very narrative based and like, you know, choice determines the outcome sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like those are great structures for anything you would want to throw into them. But I think Scream works because it's like you're trying to figure out the killer the whole time, and like maybe you get it wrong and like you get a bad ending.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe the killer changes based on who you pick. Maybe there's, you know, the form of red herring is essentially like, oh, I got a mislead, and it's like you're down to a point where it's like, okay, literally trust this person or kill this person because they may or may not be the killer.
Or
and
you
it's
could
like
fuck
you
it.
Find out
you could fuck it up the whole time to where it's like it's been you the whole time, and your warped mind is thinking it's someone else, and it turns out it was you the whole time. Yeah,
but I think Scream is tailor made for a that sort of approach. I think it'd be really fun, and it's on the brain obviously because it's just Saw 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another. I mean, they've done it a million times, and essentially there's 2 games based off the entire thing, but just give me Heat as a video game.
We briefly had kind of talked about this, but I want something that centers around, you go 2 ways with it to me. And like there's missions in GTA 5 that I think start to approach this.
Right.
Where, and I know this has been expanded upon in the online, which I don't really play, but the idea of actually getting to live through a robbery, the planning of it, of like, okay, we got to steal these 3 things to allow us to do the thing on the day. So you play through all aspects of that. You don't want to pick up any heat in the meantime, blah, blah, blah. I feel like that structure's there. I feel like what I want a little more of is a little more oceans we talked about, a little more fun vibe, more of a caper. Yeah. And that feeling of like pulling off a bunch of little tiny elements that build up, and then, you know, maybe I would have in my head there's a time element to it, maybe structured kind of like Dead Rising, the first one, where it's like you can explore, you know, certain aspects of this, but like you only have this time frame to do it within.
Right. Yeah.
And however far you get is going to be dependent on what kind of path you carve out, essentially. So I think there's an element of like, oh, okay, here's your window of time to pull off these things that could help you before the big dance, essentially. And well, hey, if you fucked up this thing, or like you ran into some trouble or whatever, well then on the, you know, this element of the game is affected by it. So, oh, you're going to have to figure out some workaround, or oh, there's a time penalty, or oh, the enemy you have to face in this sequence is like more difficult, or whatever. But I would like that. It'd be fun. And I would almost want like an original thing at this point, but I want like a fun caper planning sort of game that lets you, you know, that's not on rails. Probably be a nightmare to program just because of all the variables and stuff. But again, I think more in the realm of like Hitman, something that's like, we got a big, you know, a good sized sandbox, not something that's overwhelming, and we just focus on all the crazy iterations that can happen within it. Yeah.
What about, I was thinking about this as maybe
but to that point, Heat would play in perfectly, like I said. Oceans is in my head. Do you remember Driver, the third Driver?
Yeah, where you actually got out of the car.
There was like Madsen, Ving Rhames.
Yeah, I still remember the, what was the one, The Getaway on PlayStation 2 that was like...
Yeah. The big thing with that was there was no map.
Right.
And it was almost... I've heard this years later. I heard the whole thing where it's like, yeah, London cabbies, because like there's a billion streets that are named the same thing. It's like they have like a whole apprenticeship where they just have to learn how to drive through the city, because there is no like, oh, it's a grid system like New York. It's like none of the streets make any sense. So it's like, get me to Wickensham West, bitch. Blah, 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 you know. Yeah. So, but they echoed that in The Getaway, where I remember the whole thing was like, you're in the game, okay? There is no map. You want to know when you need to turn? You got to watch the turn signal. And I remember that being like the most annoying gameplay mechanic to a little kid who just got good at GTA and was like, oh yeah, I can drive, do whatever I want. And then you tell him like, I gotta obey traffic laws. I gotta pay attention to like turn signals. Are you kidding me? I did love The Getaway though. Not a good game. Thought of it. Like probably really clunky in retrospect, but you know, God.
One just popped in my head.
Oh God.
Ronin.
Okay.
As a video game. I feel like that story of Ronin encompasses everything you just talked about planning everything.
And to me, mechanically, it's GTA 5 because you've got great driving mechanic, you got a shooting mechanic, and you have all those set pieces. Ronin is the perfect one to encompass all of that.
Yeah, because you can even have the whole like other half of it where like you don't you don't know what's in the case, but you're finding out backstory behind it if you want to build it in, but you're also procuring things as well to make this heist happen. If you can't do it, then like at like this date, this time is when the case is in play and you got to go get it. So can you go? Is it worth you? What would you rather do? Would you rather have the firepower so you go do this thing, or would you rather can you do this thing and get a fast car? Should you get a fast car first so you can get here and get your shit done? Or how are you going to play it out? However you pick.
It's a great setup for a game character that I don't know if they've really ever done, but essentially like that deep cover like De Niro character, or just like a Johnny Utah type where it's like they're trapped in the scenario of like they got to do all this wild shit, but we know that
oh dude, that'd be perfect. Point Break, but the gameplay is influenced by the decisions you make on whether or not you're going to try and decrease the level of like chaos, or you're just going to go balls to the wall with it and take you to the edge, Johnny. You know what I mean? So like if you are actively like, I'm a cop, but I can't let them know. So like,
one side is I'm an FBI agent. The other side is like my.
You're surfing, man. Like that's the other side of it. And if you lean more towards Bodhi, you have like a rougher ending. Like you get cuffed for real, and they're like, we're throwing you away in jail. Game over. But if you can subtly like try and do things to like not necessarily sabotage them, but downplay your role in it, you get like maybe a better ending because it's like you had to do what you had to do to not blow your cover. We get you, Utah. You're fine. That sort of thing. And like there's just that'd be a ton. But just something to. I like the idea of like the choices that you make are, because it goes along into the Telltale games, as well as like something like an Elden Ring where like you make these choices and this is going to happen to you. If you do this too many times, you're going to get a bad ending. So I like the idea of there's like several movies I feel like you could do where you would, the ultimate choice is going to come down to, what do you, I don't know how they aggregate things or, make an algorithm of whatever to figure out what's what, but it's kind of like Choose Your Own Adventure, but really it's how good do you want your adventure to end? You know what I mean?
Okay. I could see that.
Yeah.
I want a economic land-based simulator. It's called There Will Be Blood.
Okay. Not Oil Tycoon?
No, it's actually going to be called I Drink Your Milkshake.
Okay.
And you have to buy up oil properties and
And you have to raise cows to get the milk.
Sure, it's essentially a farming simulator, but you're Daniel Plainview while you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's intrigue, like brothers who may or may not be your brother, and shady.
Are there a lot of bastards?
Shady
and
dealers, and then every once in a while, somebody tries to slit your throat in the middle of the night, and you got to fend them off.
Yeah. Again, are there a lot of bastards in a basket? Is that what's going on? Okay.
You also got to manage your relationship with and business partner, your son and business partner, HW.
Yeah. Yeah. And if there's a rival, whatever, you can choose to pay to have someone take care of it, or you go handle it yourself with your own two fists. And next thing you know, somebody's looking for that prospector, and no one's seen him in a while.
Yeah, somehow we're turning it into a third-person action game.
Yeah.
But I'm like...
In the vein of like a Siphon Filter / Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, show me the dark side of capitalism, and
Yeah.
let's do that.
Yeah, I could see that. trying to think of anything else that I've got.
I mean, the very obvious one. I think they even teased this at some point. But it's like, let's just stop beating around the bush and let's. I mean, Carpenter loves video games, dude.
Oh, dude.
Just let him make a straight. If we're never gonna get a Kurt Russell, like,
yeah,
we're never gonna get another Kurt Russell John Carpenter team up. Let it happen in the video game world.
Is it sad
and
that
just do the voice?
Is it sad that like I secretly was like, okay, she won. Like, this has got to motivate one of the two of them to start talking again. Like, one of the two, like, hey, did you see Jamie won? Yeah. You know what, man? It would be cool to maybe give it one last ride. And Carpenter's like, yeah, I can't let my last film be The Ward with Amber Heard, of all people. I should make another one.
He's like, I've been feeling extra bad about it.
Yeah. I just can't drag myself away from the music long enough. But if you give me a script I think I can shoot, I'll shoot it for you, brother. Okay, great. And then he hands them a sequel to Big Trouble in Little China. And we don't get an escape.
Well, dude, I mean, I'd also love a Big Trouble in Little China.
Because that's what's going to happen. It's going to be one of those. It's going to be a Big Trouble in Little China sequel or...
I know part of that, it's all wrapped up in studio rights and everything, but I don't know why nobody's made that connection yet. Where it's like, John loves video games.
Right.
You're not going to get him to direct a movie, but I think you could get him to direct Big Trouble in Little China, the sequel, the video game, where it's like, hey, we don't, which I know that sounds insane because it's like the budget they would spend to make that game is like, I wish they would just give him that budget to make a movie because it would be insane. It would be fantastic. It would obviously be way more expensive to do the game, but if you make a good game, people would be into it. And if you can market it as like directed by the director of the original film, that's kind of cool. And if you could market it as like, we fucking did facial capture on Kurt Russell and we de-aged him and he's playing young Snake or Jack Burton, or you know what? It's a video game. Fuck it. It's both. It's Jack Burton. It's a fucking Carpenter multiverse. Get Jeff Bridges, man. Just bring Starman in there. And they could call it Carpenter Revisited.
Be perfect.
Okay, if you don't have anything else, we're ending this episode.
No, I thought he did something for a game I played the other day.
He worked on Fear 3.
And there's another one that, like, it was an indie one. It wasn't that big of a deal, but he loved it. And I thought he scored it.
Okay. Well,
there's a whole, and now I just found a whole list of like movies that video games John Carpenter should make into movies. Number 6, Duke Nukem. 5, Fear.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the other direction. Is like maybe that's the only thing that could get him back into the director's chair is if they let him.
Oh, Outlast.
Outlast, is that what he?
That's it's the number 1 list of what people think he should be allowed to make.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I'm trying to think. Oh, yeah. How about something with The Boys, the TV show?
Yeah,
I'm thinking like a fucking fighting game.
I've seen a lot of people mod at. Yeah, I think fighting game is actually the way to go. Now that I think about it, it's pretty much just Injustice or like any of the recent Mortal Kombat.
It's like basically. The overall thing is like if your character makes it through.
Oh, you
give them their own ending as to how like everything ends when it comes to the show. Obviously, like if Homelander wins, we're all fucked. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like
no. Homelander's your Shang Tsung or your M Bison, your final boss. But no, you have the structure of like an Injustice game where it's like, hey, we have the story mode, but then obviously we have, your normal versus match where you can take the heroes that you love and have them fight each other. I think that's a no-brainer. That's a great idea, actually.
And then
so many fun characters and people from the comic books that you haven't introduced yet.
Right.
And then you also you could go with the aesthetic of the show, or you could go with the aesthetic of the comic book and make it like even more brutal and bloody and violent, but in a
we totally get
way.
the fucking the Mortal Kombat guys to throw us a bone and, you know.
I was just saying, like, those have moved in the direction of being almost, it sounds weird to say, but like more photorealistic. Like they get more and more graphically impressive. Where I'm like, it would almost be interesting, if it's like, we did The World of the Boys, but it looked like, what is it, Diabolical? Yeah. Like the series they have on Amazon. Yeah. Like that animation style, but still brutal as fuck.
Right.
We're sitting right here on Amazon. Invincible also seems like a
no-brainer. No, that would work. You could do so much with that Invincible property.
If I'm not mistaken, actually, I think during season 1, Kirkman said that's actually in the works. Like, that's happening. I think that is happening. So, never mind. Maybe. That one's already been taken.
I mean, there's... because I'm thinking, like, some of these ones I'm wanting to throw out, I'm like, well, how do I make this more than just, like, you know, a one-time rental / you know, buy it on the arcade and throw it away kind of thing. Like, I'm trying to think of something that would be like a big, grandiose, like, you gotta fucking play this thing. You know what I mean? You know, like, and there's been some stuff that's like, they made a game, but like, if they just did it now, it might be better. Like, I love the Godfather game, both of them.
But I wish they just upgraded. We didn't fully go into it, but I was like, there's definitely room for playing and pitching round 3, where we just come back and talk about the ones that have been successful on both sides, because there's been other good stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we save that for part 3.
Yeah.
All right.
The genesis of it. All right. What's the I don't know. Where they meet, like the synergy of it all, like where's the sweet spot between
the
video
apex?
Games? Yeah.
Is that what you're trying? I don't know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
I'm lost. Okay. So yeah, we talked The Last of Us. We played some more and pitched some more, and that's it. Next week. That's right. It's the Road to Reckoning. Month 3. Personal favorite of ours. J.J. Abrams, MI3. Stay tuned.
The film that restarted it all and tried to clean up Tom Cruise / Ethan's image.
The film that restarted it all. Just so that Brad Bird could turn right around and restart it all again.
Jason Bourne.
The false start of the franchise, which is also secretly probably the best one. It's MI3.
No, sweetie.
Next week on the ARK of E podcast.
No, sweetie. That was Philip Seymour Hoffman.
All right. Until then, I've been Noah.
I've been Gavin.
And we've been the Blanchard brothers. Thank you for listening.
And we've been playing and pitching. We've been sorting out our ideas about what films we want to be video games and what video games we want to be films. And we've been talking about Mission Impossibles and impossible missions. You know, if it's this is lucky for you, Mr. Hunt. It's easy. It's just mission difficult, not mission impossible. You know, we've been talking.
Say about all that word, Dilbert. Doink dee doink. Sorry, Dad. Dinky nuts. Squirrel jam. Hats. Balance in my checkbook. Zerbert in the sherbert. Squark. 100 gift baskets. You are now rocking with the Tesla boys. Sleepy Benjamin Franklin. Watch me veg. DJ Tanner. Swanky pumps. Moped music. Costco samples like a motherfucker. Crank up the mids. Patrick Stewart money. You know who it is. It's coming for real.
Ray Fiennes was route tickets before he hit this shit. I wish to go watch that thing like 5 more times and find out what's going on.
It's that Praxis pack. Brindle pack. Willard pack. Brindle pack.